or spell out time. I want you to see the top of the capital T as the top of the capital I, without the bottom of it, without our identity. T, all the capital letters are complete positive values nature, what it looks like. It's a progression nature. The letters are juxtaposed with the numbers in English. And value is juxtaposed with 0, 5 invisible ways. But because invisible value is diffusing through temporary value nature, matter, identities, it is also progressive. It has a progressive nature, and it has a nature already made from that, from the nature it already was. And this is the Trinity in 3 positions, as 3 natures, and there's and looked at all ways. So the T is value I without our identity attached to it. Value I stands for identity. And demonstrably, English was obfuscated, and would have been obfuscated worse if it hadn't been for religions. This is why Jesus Christ says, I am the Alpha and I am the Omega. And this is why Islam preserved English. See, physical delusions tell someone just because they have one faith that is different than someone else's. This is what Islam says. This is what the Quran says, not what Islam says. Islam is distinct from the Quran. All these movements in Islam's name are all doing what the Quran warns against. It's because of science. Science is the culprit with convictions, with psychologies, interscience. We have I'm not a doctor, but demonstrably psychology delusion propagates. And the ancients demonstrably used what they probably called algebraic consciousness to teach this. So this is with my other video. We're going to see this is 3 plus signs within a bracket. And we're going to use this to see how the Trinity, to teach how the Trinity is one way in immediate space, nature, Earth, and as our species, as our individual, and as groups or sexes as one value in physics. But we're going to have to learn metaphysics, which has been obfuscated since ancient times per the nature of language with the law. In other words, if you're going to tell lies, you need to pretend things are logical that aren't to themselves, the sciences, and the stewards, and this is a problem. So what they do to justify the lies that nations are only trained as self-defense natures. This is because of geopolitical, uncharged, criminally legalized, criminal enterprise juxtapositions and methods to it that queens and kings didn't even understand. And chiefs didn't even, they understood it, but they don't understand it enough to not blame it on other lies and delusions, and to not hold indifferences to human conviction as human conviction nature in relationship with language, in relationship to its treatments needed by the law, forced by the original cause to our retreats, to all areas, and in relationship to all kinds of crime progressions, all kinds of hurt conviction natures. And this is juxtaposed with all the other problems like the drug problems, and these are insidiously to the maintenance of themselves through our schools and through healthcare per recorded acts. Now there's per recorded proofs. I never met the guy down, but there are recorded proofs that he has roles with related confections recorded, the evidence fabrications, and uses of in Connecticut now they have laws where they're forcing needles into people. You know, diabetes I wouldn't wish that on anybody. You know what I'm saying? These things. I'm not a doctor, but there are evidence, there's recorded proofs that doctors don't have credibility with one thing to be unchecked and insulated like this, and with our courts. And this is also involved with other more serious crimes reported and being actively hid because of how they were affected through time. And this is in relationship to how motivations are really holding the drug problems through our schools. It's not money. They're being used for evidence fabrications. The dealers and for that involve complex illusions. That's why they have legal movements going after criminal against school bullying, but not against real rights treatment, like real facts. In other words, if you have a school bullying problem, you have to classify it as that. Then the school failed. You know, especially now with technology. You see the kid do it, you say, "Don't do it again." They do it again. You say you make sure they understand. Things don't happen. Then it doesn't happen again. That's it. You know, but they need the problems is because of all the psychological delusions with psychology. So this nation was for. We also need to address their roles with slavery, and with the original causes to interbranch terror roles with like witch trials and all kinds of terror laws. They had people, if they even thought about building outside of colonial infrastructure standards, which we're still going by, even building less than that now. They would hurt them and their families. You know, this is what I learned in college. Terror laws was colonization, but they don't tell these narratives with summary convictions of American history, even in college. They're attaching forced glorifications and forced, summary convictions with lies and delusions, glorifying forced negotiation with terrorists in political theater on our founders. We must understand Marbury versus Madison. All justice, true justice, must satisfy all appearances of justice. And we must understand all the insidious narratives that have kept this twisted and not understood through time, not understood, forced blamed on other lies and delusions, hurtfully. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police officer. The English was demonstrably designed to teach multiple sciences, including the law. For example, that's why in the law we inherited the predicate act defined in relationship to negative value natures, acts caused by in progressions caused by criminal enterprises, natures, insidious natures they cause, internation criminal enterprises. But there are also proof since founding our legal natures have had physical delusions attached to what criminal enterprises are, and as self-defense natures and justification of language and treatments of psychology and of logic and facts in relationship to that, juxtaposing top-down lies and delusions. In other words, one's entertaining roles with originally forced internation, terror prisons, and terror medicine systems, with roles with things like slavery and witch trials and narratives pretending facts, with criminally legalized persuasions pretending that the governments can't be sued is right for them to further so many abuses against people. So there's a guy, I don't know his name yet, but he's a prosecutor of some sort involved with the courts and with tortures of human people and with evidence fabrications. A guy named Dow is also involved with campuses with obfuscating recorded rape threats and their roles with drugs through time. And I read this he has a relationship to Yukon roles with this and with Wethersfield police and related confessions to be recorded and further correlated and further demonstrable, further correlation. In other words, we have to address lies put in databases. First, we lies put in databases with this first. As a nation, we need to have facts treatments freed from faith in experts. We have expert lean that's killing us. It's expert lean was demonstrably associated with what they call mission creep, and with summary convictions dictating that nobody has the right, nobody has the ability to correlate in relationship to these things, because only they know about the physical fronts, the logistics of physical fronts of terror groups in the world. They don't understand the actual facts, treatments needed in connections to these things. Excuse me. We must understand how internation organized crimes were originally juxtaposed with the branches, and so they would only be let realize to roles exploiting those juxtapositions for their own needs to lie to all areas. This is the method. This is the evidence fabrication method. Nobody wanted slavery. Especially, that's not natural human nature. It was tactically imposed for tactical long-term evidence fabrication methods. Not just to say divide. Everyone could say divide and conquer and have simple concepts in their mind. But the long-term thing is evidence fabrication, is linguistics. It's English. English is every science is juxtaposed. So what they did was make algebra a math to force physical delusions consciously, and to have them self-defended by legal natures. Only let train realize this way. So then we have facts treatments, not let in relation justifying logic that's with lies and delusions top down, only let realize. So nations don't understand how, there is a systemic and only let realized indifference to great hurt in Oz. And there are proofs that internation police that were associated with shock and awe, not America. There are proofs that George Bush took from the information more that said groupthink was involved with it, which is just like mission creep, no, groupthink. In other words, correlation can reveal so much. Everyone should turn now and try to help the not just for we should to take a position to perpetuate evolution through and with the Sioux, the 7 bands of the Sioux right now at Standing Rock. Even if we can't win that legally, or yet, we have to understand what's inherent to the landscape, what's inherent to the flooded forest. What's inherent to the flooded forest is what the laws aren't letting free. So the flooded forest is staying the flooded forest as is. The inherent nature of it, the value is not being realized completely. So it's not being realized as its own identity. Inherent to the flooded forest, inherent to all temporary positive value natures, like time, is complete positive value nature, is the invisible bottom of the T, which is identity, that is unchanging positive, and progressively so, because the value of unchanging space nature's positive identity, it's of expanding value because it's expanding through temporary value nature in immediate space. It's forcing juxtaposition of consciousness diffusing through matter. So it's forcing the bond of matter. This is more logical. And that bond, therefore, is semi-positive, with the rest of the nature of matter being negative, but being with an active relationship to what is unchanging positive inherent to its own nature. So it being of value beyond just its own negative nature when in conjunction with correlation. consciousness is only semi-positive nature, but through correlation. Then we realize the body of the physical body and the identity's body to positive, complete positive identity realization, which is a nature. The body is a nature only semi-positive in demonstration of this. It's a correlation. It's one position, like Islam in Saudi Arabia. This is a physical body. This is not what the Quran says, but this is what the Quran, the truth and the sequence nature of the Quran, and in other words, of things implied by what we know is true and what is actively lied about. Like, for example, Islam saved, or not Islam. Islam Islam through a method with the Quran saved algebra, and algebra is not a math. See, then what brought Europe into the Dark Ages, pseudo-educated them and changed human nature through education. It then had to adapt to what the Quran did, which was another front, demonstrating the Quran says that the Quran loves people that are semi-translated correctly as unbelievers, values them more than, and the same as people who believe in the faith of the Quran. What the topic of the Quran is about is unchanging positive nature. The rest of the Quran, to understand it, you have to first understand the first part of it in sequence, which is all the person regarding the person with faith in the Quran, not in Islam, in the Quran. The Quran warns against faith in Islam before it, or even as the Quran said wants faith in itself, in its own sequence nature. That's what it is, a sequence nature. That's not even debatable. I mean, you could debate it, but this is also in relationship to why Arabic is right to left with space nature's definite article, value A, capital A, lowercase l in English, and left to right with English, value the THE is the definite article of temporary value nature, temporary space nature. Everything is space nature. That's one thing that everything shares of value is space. It is space nature. Because one space nature that is unchanging always is in demonstration to us actively. And it's of progressive value. See, this is where hell and where heaven come from. Because once the identity is diffused, the nature remains. And while it is in diffusion, it remains. But we have to be valued not just by ourselves. We have to be valued to our species and to all group bodies, nations. This is ratiocination. This correlation. And the sexes has one value. As rights not discerned by type, but by needs. See, all the linguistic games are only let entertained. And then the emotions try to feel what's right to say. And then people are self-defending themselves as evidence fabrication natures. And they're slandering the people with real facts like me. We have interbranch families doing this too, per recorded proofs through time, and not by accident. This is very insidious and tied to proofs of all kinds of exploitations of only let realize national, international, legal nature treatments of the media and of topics through them, and of interstate area of nations, exploitations of that with medical and with prison international industry positions yet charged. For example, with natures of organized crime, with slavery, with all kinds of sick forms of it, with all colors. This is to hurt people's emotions, to make them not want to bring up this topic perpetually, to have it blamed on lies and delusions, like racism. Racism is still needed by evidence fabrication causations of us not addressing real law and understanding and truth in with our innocence and with our campuses. So what we have, evidence fabrication nature, insidious natures across the board of nations, all sharing guys with faith and science and money and just topics that are physical delusions to logic, not letting real ratiocination, not letting it by taking positions against it. With passions, the only ones being forced to dictate what's right and everything like that. So we have the same movements forcing that they keep repeating about the terror group names and all that stuff like that. They won't take the police reports that are really connected to what really those things are connected to, because they've been in the maintenance of all kinds of gangland things through what's with our courts and jails, with medicine, and with our hospitals, and with our schools to enter science. There are recorded proofs. But we don't have, for example, we have evidence fabrication natures throughout the nation who will make 9/11 memorials. But then if you go to try to bring something up on there that requires them to have to challenge or have to question something they fear to question, like the authority of the branches, which is scary to have to face, truths, to voice truths, always has been. That's why they've always been state forsaken, many of them. Forget about it. They never freed so many areas, the campuses. They blame it on the. They start divide and conquer. They say, oh, because we didn't have enough black teachers. Then they put the black ones in, which is just a physical phenomenon. People are people, but the whole time, no one addresses psychology, all the psychological delusions. No one realizes the policing natures that are psychologists too, with these physical delusions and criminal industry exploitations internationally, as evidence fabrications to all areas predictably. This is the problem with these wars, with Syria, with Aleppo in Syria, and with Palestine, Israel on the water. They nuclear technology. They don't know what that is. What happened? Did they know that they were going to have the tidal wave in Japan? They didn't know. And then did the backup work? No. You know what I'm saying? And then what are they going to do with the Sioux? They're going to put that cheap pipe in like that, and they're going to stick the landscape theater. That's not real landscape. Not even the beneficial bacteria and fungi and stuff like that are in the soil any longer. This nation in the treatments of water and of science only they realize all tactically denatured. See the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Museum, the oldest Native museum in the nation. And see right next to the Mohegan Sun too. They divided them, and then there's other Native American tribes. We need to do something for them too. But I don't know. There's so many impositions still. Even with money is not everything. You know what I'm saying? There's still intellectual, spiritual, all kinds of impositions with the legal nature treatments of the Mashantucket and of the Mohegan and of the other Native American tribes. And what? We can't speak for that because we're not their culture. The facts are facts. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, the same thing with slavery. I can prove, I can speak better for it than anybody has spoke yet for because I'm talking about the organized crime natures with it that are demonstrably recorded that they haven't been charged. And not only had not been charged, what caused it, even though we know it through correlation, it won't be let addressed. And per lies and forced theaters, forcing glorifications of the forced theater of our founders. You know, there's big problems inter science. We want us to understand there's so many hurt people in the jails that do not deserve it. They're using schools worse than just as guys let be daycare centers. You know what I'm saying? With everyone on different standardized of education, and then blaming that on racism, when only evidence fabrication natures are to all these different sides, all defending fake identities. There's one identity and it's positive, and we only share it. That's what we're a species in demonstration of. That's what real science would have said a long time ago if it was honest. We use ratiocination. We wouldn't be a species for no reason. Not everything has a reason here. Everything has a purpose. We're supposed to understand correlation actively, because it's actively in demonstration to us. Not time, but what's inherent to time. Time is only negative value nature. What's inherent to it is means to correlation to what's inherent to everything else. Is one unchanging nature, and that is what is flowing through us. Only not as our identity, but as the cause and as of the nature of a nature that of a consciousness that can be correlated, because it too is only negative value nature unless correlation with what's inherent to it. Even consciousness only has unchanging positive inherent to it, because this is only temporary space nature. Unchanging positive is lasting space nature, and is temporary space nature, and is progression through temporary space nature actively. That's the Trinity actively in relationship to matter, which is positive first, metaphysics always second, and the value of physics always third. See, the ancients who criminally re-engineered ancient revelations and understandings of human nature, they criminally engineered it, knowing that they could cultivate humanity self-defending itself as evidence fabrication, pseudo-identity nations, top to bottom and bottom up, and then they could just juxtapose whatever lie progression is needed with this. This is how, too, there's proof recorded of prisons with roles with doctors, sick doctors, like in relationship to natures of organized crime, too, demonstrably connected to the motivations of Joseph Mengele with the world wars, and with the narratives about Hitler, who was a military guy. He wasn't. He didn't understand. See, everyone relies on everybody else, and then we leave the legal nature treatments out because everyone wants to force passions and lie and delusions. You know what I'm saying? I'm not glorifying anybody. I'm saying we're all the same exact positive identity and facts treatment nature. And so when we try to take one person and make that an example as a fact, it's not a fact. Then we're not understanding the whole thing. How every side was and stays evidence fabrication natures. You know? So when they took Joseph Mengele, lined up Jewish people, and then they picked them out for scientific experiments, for the same reason they did all kinds of terror laws like with witch trials and slavery. This is criminal insidiousness in relationship to a nature of evidence fabrication method that needs lies and progressions and her conviction natures to all areas, and to have it blamed on other things, and everyone stayed indifferent to what's with our prisons and what's with healthcare, with psychology. Psychology demonstrably delusion propagates insulated with a court. When you go to court, when you go to a regular court, they work with medicine and work with healthcare as if, you know, and that's with that are laws that they're not supposed to talk about people's medical problems. But what they're doing is using that, pretending it as means to insulate lies, and then perpetually have mistreatments of it because no one's talking. Everyone's pretending they can't talk because of medical reasons, but it's all fabricated informations, and we're going to see that they're even furthering the same drug movements right through their patients and gangs. There are recorded proofs of this too. So we have evidence fabrication natures of nations inherent to the flooded forest is way.